Pioneer Human Services touches thousands of real lives each year. Those touched by Pioneer receive a hand up, not a handout. It's been that way since its founding in 1963. The early leaders of Pioneer focused on their mission of providing a chance for change and a vision that in order to change, individuals had to be willing to help themselves, to heal, to grow. The founders of Pioneer and its subsequent leaders have played a significant role in the organization's success. These honorary governors were celebrated at an event in the fall of 2007. This is their story, and a collection of their stories about the early days of Pioneer.
Jack Dalton was a Seattle attorney who got into some trouble with his drinking problems, and he dipped into a trust fund of one of his clients and was found out and went to prison. And while he's in there, he knew that when he got out, he had to do something with his life that was worthy and worthwhile. And so he'd heard about halfway houses that were just getting started, and so he decided that's what he was going to do.
Well, I'd been on A for a while, and I never heard of a halfway house. So he said, well, it's a kind of a stepping stone in the society.
We started having meetings in my office on Friday evenings, and it was Ray Stewart, there was Ken Maxwell, there was Jack Dalton. Talk about this idea, and then it just took form.
So without anything, just an idea, he got out of Walla Walla with the suit of clothes and $50 bill, and went out, and he went to his old friends and buddies and told them about he wanted to do something to help people like they were, and he was tremendously convincing.
You know, the first members of the board were alcoholics.
And of course there was AA groups going around the clock, 11 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock in the morning. There was always an AA group going, a meeting going somewhere. So Jack was out just trying to sell his idea to all these different meetings.
One of the AA meetings I'd go to occasionally, at least, was called the Edgewood Group. That was an all-men's group, and at that time, a very anonymous group. It was mostly successful businessmen that were in those days, nobody wanted to admit they were in a 12-step program, different than now. And I met Jack there.
I looked around the board, and most all of them were out recovered alcoholics. They said, what are you doing here? I said, in my business, I have to drink so much. I want to be close to the source of recovery whenever I go over the edge.
Jack's idea was that he would bring in attorneys, he would bring in judges, he would bring in people that worked in the jails, running the jails.
In the Seattle Municipal Court, where the majority of my cases were public intoxication, at that time it was a crime in the city of Seattle to be intoxicated in a public place. I became convinced that the people who were coming before me were alcoholics. And when I heard about this disbarred lawyer who had a program for alcoholics, I had to meet him.
Well, I just found it very unusual, the commitment that I saw on that board to improving people who have a illness. Our
original board president was Harold Heath of Heath Techna. And Harold was our board president for 7 or 8 years, and he gave not only through his company, but there was a time before I came on board where Pioneer was so destitute that the 2 leading staff members at that time said they would work for nothing to try to keep it going.
Well, in the early days, they weren't well managed, and so they always needed money.
And Mr. Heath stepped up and said, no, I'll write you a check. And he wrote a personal check for years.
And so I kept giving them money, whatever they needed, or lines of credit, whatever they needed. And it always worked out. you know, you look at a situation to see if it's possible that you might be able to make it profitable as a business, but also you want it to be something that works good for the people.
You know, it's not the most popular nonprofit in terms of the people that Pioneer serves, and yet I've been impressed with how Pioneer has always been able to sustain itself without contributions.
And the amount of money we have in donation is very small. I mean, it doesn't mean we wouldn't do that sometime, but it's never been a philosophy of Pioneer. It's always been, we're going to have to earn our way to make this thing work.
We've gotten very professional in what we do. And the Ford Foundation gave us $325,000 many, many years ago to do an outcomes. So we were able then to set up a whole department within Pioneer and track our outcomes. So we knew whether we were helping or not. And a lot of times a year or two later, we'd track these people, and so we knew what we were doing. And so therefore we'd go back and say, okay, what we did was right, and what we're doing is right.
For us, nonprofit means we make money. We're very serious. We want to be as efficient as any other company. But when we make money, we take the money and put it back into the program, helping people.
That's what Pioneer Human Services is. It isn't. It's all this glitz and all this out there scuffling for the buck and all that sort of. That's not what it is. It's these people.